We now have an interesting clientele session lined up. Hear from verticals on their innovation, resilience, and advancements in the last 12 months, the impact it created, and their partnerships with the technology companies in all of this. The first session of our clientele segment will focus on resilience, the digital arsenal in managing volatility. I would like to welcome our chair for the session, Sudhir Singh, CEO and Executive Director, Coforge. Sudhir brings experience across Unilever, Hindustan Lever, Infosys and Genpact to bear on his current role at Coforge. He has 24 years of industry experience with an exceptional track record of execution, driving robust revenue and margin growth simultaneously, executing business turnarounds and orchestrating successful acquisitions. Over to you, Sudhir.
Thank you very much, Shreya, for handing over the session to me. And a very good morning and a very good evening to you across the world, folks. Welcome to the clientele segment. You heard this in the earlier sessions. I suspect you've heard this many times in the earlier sessions. The year 2020 was remarkable, and remarkable in so many different ways. What I personally found most fascinating about 2020 was the speed, the rapidity with which our perspectives evolved. They had to evolve as the year rolled on. We lurched from optimism at the start of the year to deep, thankfully short-lived, but deep despair. And we finally rebounded with increased confidence as the year wound down, and industries and people on their bearings. 2020 was also the year when we learned a great deal about our own selves, ourselves as individuals, as organizations. And dare I say, we learned a lot about the industries that our organizations are a part of. Our experiences emphasized our global interdependence. They exposed our collective vulnerabilities. And finally, they highlighted our industry's strength, our collective strength in this interconnected age, where in some ways we work interestingly, at least in technologies, as the effective digital horizontal across every industry of the world. Over the next 1 hour, we will hear live, evolving stories still mutating, still changing as we speak, of industries, firms embedded in those industries, and the resilience that they displayed, the innovation that they fostered, and the advancements that they recorded. These speakers, and I will have the pleasure of speaking with the first one, shall also talk expressly about their partnership with tech companies from the NASScom umbrella clearly included, which allowed them to create impact, and not just impact at scale. As I reflect on my interaction with some of the leaders you will hear from shortly, and I did spend time with them before these sessions, the three immediate to long-term priorities that now are clearly relevant across industries are: one, a heightened, dare I say, a very heightened emphasis on digital acceleration to be future ready. This includes, and I think this is particularly important, a heightened awareness within firms across industries to regard themselves as tech-first firms, tech-only firms. The days of looking at outsourcing tech, stepping back, clearly have gone. Two, the importance of clear, definite, yet flexible and purpose-driven leadership. And finally, three, the third thing that's become really clear is that the realignment of strategies that we've talked about that is warranted, including rebalancing supply chains, enhancing environmental, social, corporate programs, and aligning with the newer work realities is going to be an absolute and is an absolute imperative. As a prelude to these conversations, and I suspect these are going to be very rich conversations, I thought I would talk about the two industries that my firm, Coforge, works with extensively: financial services and logistics. These two industries, to my mind, illustrate and have illustrated more demonstrably during the pandemic the resilience that a broader swath of industries have displayed across the globe. These two industries, financial services and logistics, have also reflected the innovations. They've reflected the partnerships that allowed them to bounce back, not just bounce back to a pedestal, to a benchmark, to a peg that's higher than where they were earlier. Reflecting back on the BFSI sector and what it went through in the wake of the pandemic, the changes that came in, the tech pivots that facilitated those changes, will leave behind, once the pandemic is over, significant opportunities for the future for the industry. They include technology advancement in remote desktop software. You've seen that. High-speed communication technologies becoming mainstream. They have. We will look at digital channel development acceleration for self-services across most customer-facing processes. That process just got spiked. It just leapfrogged through this process. Cybersecurity solutions to prevent online frauds and phishing. We've seen the acceleration, and that ain't going to slow down anytime soon. And finally, the need for AI, for data analytics, for RPA, for emerging technologies to focus on efficient remote services, enabling faster customer reach and resolution is a given. It's been enabled. It will be accelerated going forward. So that's the BFSI story. Moving on to the other industry that Coforge engages with extensively, logistics. And let's talk about the changes that industry underwent. I'm going to have the pleasure of speaking with Nick Puri subsequently from FedEx around this, but the broad theme around the impact of the pandemic on the industry, I think the biggest impact was that the shifting in mindset from globalization to regionalization in order to produce a resilient response, a real response to the pandemic. Enterprises had to develop their own in-house sourcing and delivery options. And what was interesting was the re-emergence of logistic hubs at the regional level. It's already a reality. It's going to keep accelerating. It's going to take off in the future as well. We've sensed this, a significant move from large warehouses to smaller warehouses, which has been effected. And the intent, what's really driven that is the intent to be closer to the customer. It enabled deliveries in times of lockdowns and was driven by retail players, including the e-com giants. Emphasis within this industry during the pandemic shifted towards more local shipping and movements impacted all of us personally. Today, the logistics sector is moving with speed towards automation-driven efficiency. There is increased focus on automation, on analytics, on real-time visibility, on digital supply chain networks, name it. In closing, looking at these two examples across financial services and logistics, I am confident in the resilience of our businesses during these times and our ability as an industry to help our customers, our communities, our employees, and other stakeholders work through this. You shall, I suspect, hear fairly close sentiments from the 3-4 panels that follow post this introduction. Closer home, as I wind up at Coforge, our hope has become a reality. We have successfully found ways to serve our clients with minimal disruption while supporting our communities and keeping our people engaged, productive, and healthy. So with that preamble, on to the storytelling session, the sessions around client tales. Let me now quickly move on to the next session, the first fireside chat, as we talked about. As I set the context to introducing my fantastic co-speaker, today I have the pleasure of having virtually with me, and I say absolute pleasure of having virtually with me, Nick Puri, Senior Vice President, IT from FedEx. Nick is responsible for international IT, and both of us will talk through some specific steps that helped blunt the COVID crisis impact and enabled both our organizations, FedEx and Coforge, to emerge resilient, and not just resilient, but to emerge stronger. Nick, thank you so much for joining us. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on board.
Same here, Sudhir. Thank you for nasscom for inviting me. And I want to welcome all those who are listening in, and I want to wish you happy health.
Thank you, Nick. Nick, kicking this off, the coronavirus pandemic, it's roiled markets, it's disrupted business models around the world. And one consequence of the crisis has been a renewed focus on what makes the company resilient. Nick, FedEx has proven to be highly resilient, and more than highly resilient. Your organization has actually been a great enabler of allowing other firms across industries to remain resilient during this pandemic. Can you share with us, Nick, your insights into how you emerged not just resilient, but more resilient post and as the pandemic progressed?
Of course, Sudhir. One of the things that you did excellent job of setting up is what are the trends taking place in the industry, whether it be API first, DevOps, cloud, data-driven decision-making, AI, ML, or IoT. These are all part of wider industry phenomena that are going on that the founder of World Economic Forum, Dr. Claus, talks about as Industry Transformation 4.0. During these times, companies are becoming more and more digital. If you're not a digital company, you will have a very difficult time competing in the marketplace of today and definitely tomorrow. So one of the things that we were lucky with is that our modernization journey, our digital journey started many years ago. Concepts that I've talked about, API first, data first, we had embraced them much earlier on. We were very much proponent of safe or scaled agile framework for enterprise way of working. So when the pandemic hit, there were a couple of immediate needs that we started facing. These needs were all around e-commerce because many of us, you and I, we are working from remote locations. We all started working from home and we had to enable commerce. Instead of being delivered at retailers and wholesalers, we had to deliver it to be delivered at home. We had to enable that right away. Second thing we had to do was we had to make sure that our team members are safe and they are able to transact with this e-commerce in a contactless manner. That was a new expectation, an expectation that was not around. Incidentally, you used a phrase called leapfrog in these times. Our strategy, our international IT strategy, is indeed called leapfrog because our purpose is to make sure that we leverage all the modernization and we bring forward speed to value so that we are able to accelerate in the marketplace whenever there is a change in the market needs. We were able to very quickly enable contactless delivery in less than 2 weeks, something that we could only do because the investment was there, because our capabilities were there, and because our team members had the mindset that we needed to do something very, very differently. We have always believed that bringing modern technologies, modern ways of working, and modern mindset is the key to doing this. At FedEx, we took it to heart. And when the need was there for us to deliver PPE equipment, change our logistic operations, change the supply chain, but more importantly, to enable our customers to become digital, we had to harness our team members, we had to harness their resources and make sure that they came forward and delivered the capabilities so that our customers can become digital, our customers can ship with FedEx, our customers have access to PPE, healthcare equipment, and our customers are able to survive and change their business model in today's world.
Fantastic.
Talking about change, so your team has also gone through quite a bit of change, hasn't it? If I recall this, Coforge was famous in our industry for being specializing in travel and transportation industry. With the shutdown of travel, leisure sector going down, airline, hotels, cruises, you have pivoted very quickly towards the banking and financial sector. I would love to know from you what you did. What did your team do to make this transformation and make this pivot so quickly?
Thanks for your insight, Nick, and thanks for that question. I suspect the two themes that you just talked about, right, the whole leapfrogging theme and the resiliency that you talked about, played out at a different scale in our case as well, and that's what allowed us, like FedEx, to not just bounce back, but to bounce back stronger than ever. For us, building resilience for our clients and for ourselves entailed everything from enabling proactive financial constructs and all the way to enabling infrastructure upgrades and support for alternate workplace arrangements. Response to your question, Anik, that's how we went through the journey, and I think it mirrors in some ways the two themes that you very articulately, very clearly called out around leapfrogging and resilience. As I reflect back on these times, as I reflect back on what I heard you say, Nick, and knowing the specific context of FedEx, right, on the people front, FedEx proved resilient. It allowed other organizations to stay resilient. But FedEx also has a very large workforce in the field. These aren't people who are working in office only. And there was a time, and we all remember March, we remember April last year, when everything was locked down. There were significant restrictions in movement. Added to this, I recall this, you recall this, people were scared to even touch packages and supplies. So Nick, how did you manage your employee concerns at a time like this, and how did you actively mobilize the very large, very dispersed global workforce at FedEx?
So Sudhir, FedEx has more than 500,000 team members worldwide. We operate in we provide service in more than 200 countries, and we are serving more than 99% of GDP worldwide. One of the key advantage that we have is that we can see trends that are emerging in different parts of the world. I have team members who live in and work in China. We could see the trends that were taking place over there. Then we started seeing the same trends in Italy. And finally, back in US, we started also seeing these trends emerge. We were very quick to understand that this is something very, very different. One of the key things that we have in our DNA is our culture. We're very proud of our culture, which is very people-centric. And we had to just lean into our toolkit when it comes to people to understand what is needed during this time. One of the key things we understood early on is that there is a high degree of anxiety in our team members. They are feeling anxiety not just about their job, but about their loved ones. They are also feeling very high degree of anxiety about the unknown about this pandemic that was facing us. None of us have gone through this in a lifetime. And we knew that we had to be in front of our team members and address this head on. We had to make sure that we not only made ourselves available to them, but we were there so that we could listen to them. We could understand their concerns. We could listen and answer the questions that were on their mind. We also started being very humble and be authentic about it. The key thing that helped us as leaders, that helped FedEx in general, is that we were able to share our own experiences through this journey. Provide people with a sense that we are in this together and we will get through this together. And more importantly, we started over-communicating. We had to make sure that people understood what is our IT strategy. People understood what is the business situation we are in, to understand what plans we were making so that they could look up to the leadership, they could look up to management and say, I understand where we are going. And in some cases, they could see us make those same choices that we are asking others to make, that we are asking our team members to make. So leaning into our history, leaning into prior experiences, we were able to bring forward many of these programs. I talked about contactless delivery. You gave the question about how do people even react to when somebody shows up your doorstep and said, I have a package that has been shipped from China for you. And we would step back and say, we are now enabling, and we did this very quickly in 10 days, something called contactless delivery. We made sure that instead of making people sign, we were able to leverage other digital means of authentication. We were able to implement that because the capabilities existed. We used the phrase that because of the pandemic, e-commerce has been accelerated. The adoption of e-commerce has been accelerated during the transportation industry by 3 years. We've said that on our earnings release. Our CMO said that. And we use the phrase, the future has actually now arrived 3 years early. When future arrives early, the companies that have embraced digital transformation, digital optimization, digitization, the 3 layers of it in every aspect of their business processes are able to react much faster. And what I felt. We were able to react very quickly, not just in making sure that we were able to reroute the telephony calls to our customer service agents who are now working from home, not just because we were able to stand up VPN for 100,000 people, but we were able to deliver business capabilities that our customers were counting on us. During these times of March, April that you referenced, Sudhir, the regulatory environment changed quite a bit. We had to make sure that our paperwork for cross-border trade reflected the new regulatory environment, the new requirements, so that we can move PPE equipment at that time. We could move healthcare ventilators at that time. All of that came very quickly at us. And I will really encourage all my peers who are listening on this to ask yourself, how much of your investment is going through these digital platforms? Because today the disruption came through pandemic. Tomorrow the disruption can come from one of those 100 startups that you talked about. And the only way to be able to react, to adjust your business model, adjust to the needs of your customers' business models changing, will be to lean into a modern technology stack. All right, so talking about disruption, Sudhir, I read in some of the news articles that because of the sudden nature of the pandemic hitting all of us, you had employees stranded in US, UK, Spain, and many other countries. And your team did a pretty good job in mobilizing resources and get the team members engaged and kept your global workforce motivated and working. How did you do that? Share some with us so that me and my peers can learn from that.
Thanks for the question, Nick, and thanks for the insights and response to the earlier question that I had for you. I think the culture aspect that you talked about at FedEx, the 3-year leapfrogging that you alluded to, the fantastic work that your team, FedEx in general, did managing, I'm sure, the myriad regulatory issues that you faced, I suspect will lend itself to being a fantastic case study once we have all of this behind us. But thank you for those insights. Let me just attempt an answer to what you said. You're absolutely right. The pandemic was, for us as well, more importantly for our employees, a very trying time. Mobilizing them, moving them from the different parts of the world back to key locations was a sudden and a very important imperative for us. We took specific actions. The intent was to make sure employees were safe first, healthy, motivated, focused on supporting our clients and also the communities in which they lived, not just keeping them safe as individuals. So when it came to responding to your immediate question, when it came to mobilizing, moving workforce stranded in different parts of the world, we managed movements of employees from the US, from UK, from Spain, from Middle East, from multiple parts of the world, because the release in most cases was sudden. We had a core team that was set up with business leaders, with delivery leaders, with HR, with facilities, with admin, with immigration, all in the same pool. Obviously, just as you talked about regulatory issues, in our case, we had to collaborate with government departments across governments. We had to collaborate with airlines at a time when airline capacity was constrained or routes were frozen. We had to work with several agencies to ensure that we could get people safely back to their homes. As I reflect back on the two things that we discussed, Nick, right now, right? It brings me back to the last point of our discussion today. Every resilient organization has a purpose, and you talked about the culture. Every organization has a purpose beyond just delivering business value.
We believe our purpose is to continue to invest in our people, in our customers, and in all of our team members to make sure that we are able to move the world forward. We are delivering today more than packages. We are delivering vaccines. We are delivering PPE equipment. I feel like sometimes we're delivering hope. And it is one of those things that I am very excited about. from our purpose point of view, never has the role of FedEx, role of IT in FedEx been more important than it is right now. We feel very proud to be able to work with our partners around the world to be able to bring not just your goods to your home, but to make sure the global economy continues to function, to make sure that you can count on us during these times. We are indeed very fortunate to be in this position, and we feel very privileged to be able to play this role.
Fantastic words, Nick. Fantastic insight. And I think the way you worded it, when you talk about your role is to bring hope in dark times like the ones that we've seen. I can't think of an organization better placed, a set of leaders who've been able to make a deeper impact than what you, your peers, your colleagues at FedEx have done. And I think the way in which you articulated it, bringing hope to a world that increasingly is looking for more of it, has been fantastic. Every great organization is built around a great purpose. And thank you so much for enlightening us with what FedEx stands for, what FedEx has done, and how it has done it. I know this is the 50th anniversary of FedEx. On behalf of NASScom, on behalf of our listeners, we would all like to very sincerely wish you, your organization FedEx, another great 50 glorious years and beyond. It's been brilliant chatting with you, Nick, and I look forward to some more in the near future.
Thank you, Sudhir. I appreciate the opportunity. Everybody stay safe.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, folks. I'm going to now hand this over to Shreya once again to take this forward. Thank you very much for listening, for your interest, and for your time. Over to you, Shreya.
Thank you so much, Sudhir, and of course, thank you, Nick. Some eye-openers there for sure. The speed at which perspectives evolved during the year surely stands out, and so does the obvious opportunities that lie ahead of us as an industry. Global interdependence and collaboration seem to be the only way forward, and that surely is good news. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Nick and Sudhir giving us some real insights into what this clientele segment could actually entail and what it means for the next few days.